So in the current uncertain climate, which is what we've been talking about since we met yesterday, obviously risk management has become essential to strengthen resilience and also to create sustainable value. So the second part of our discussion aims at confronting the troubles with transitioning. We've been talking about transitioning. You're going to go into more details about transitioning towards having a strategic approach to risk and to shed light on some of the areas that will require special attention if we want to make risk management a value-adding function for all the companies. So I'm delighted to have with us four members of the panel. First of all, Rami Feghali, you are EMA Head of Risk at PwC. Thank you very much for being with us. We also have Cristina Martinez Garcia. You are the Qualified Risk Director and Group Chief Risk Officer at SACIR. Thank you for being with us. Ulrich Ademheit, you are Head of Business Risk at Vattenfall. Thank you for being with us. And we are absolutely delighted to have with us remotely the Head of Risk Management at DTEK. And if I tell you that he's in Kyiv, that's obviously why he can't be with us today. And I'm sure we're going to give him an absolute huge round of applause. Mikhailo Rushkovsky, we're delighted to have you with us today in Kyiv. Thank you. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Rami, because FERMA published the 2022 European Risk Management Survey with the support of PwC. I think it would be good to start off our discussion if you tell us what this report tells us about the challenges faced by risk managers and their organizations. Can you set the tone with that?
Yes, I will try to set the tone. Thank you, and maybe say a few words about the survey itself shortly. It has been conducted in the beginning of 2022 with more than 500 respondents from 26 European countries, so quite wide. I'm going to give some information because I have a couple of minutes, but some more information in the survey. So I have a hard copy there that you can get at the FERMA stand at the entrance, and obviously it's in the website. So in short, and it was in your introduction, it tells us that the challenge of the risk function is to be more strategic and digital, and you can see in the figure that there is some progress in that respect, but probably not enough. So I only pick a few items about being strategic and digital. You can see this in the top risk that were identified for 2022. The top one is cyber risk, which is the one that was there the previous year. So there's some constant in this. But then the next one, and it wouldn't be surprised considering the environment we're in, are now geopolitical and supply chain risk. And if you look at the risk that the risk manager see for 10 years ahead, it's climate change. So these risks, by nature, are strategic. They are uncertain, they can hurt, they have a lot of connection between them, so you need really to have an enterprise-wide vision of it. And in order to analyze them, to take decision, you need to look at the core business processes. So they are strategic by nature. And I will do it quickly, but I think to address this, you need to have a risk function that is a bit prospective and has a 360-degree vision, vertical and horizontal. And when you look at the survey, you think that things are happening in terms of connection, for instance. It's getting better with sustainability department, but still not systematic. And I can give a lot of examples, but I see you want to jump to other questions. No?
No. Give us a few concrete examples. I think concrete examples are good.
The attendance to board committee, to executive committee is there, but not systematic yet. The interaction with the core risk that we mentioned, so supply, the sources and procurement, sustainability, IT, even IT, so it's there as well, it's increased, but not systematically there as well. The stakes, the risk looking at the digital transformation, very, very, very low. And so you have all this figure that tell you that something is happening, but probably not fast enough. And we did another survey at PwC coming from the CEO perspective and the business perspective. And it tells us pretty much the same thing. The main challenges were keeping up with the speed of transformation and digital, and also have being able to have a connected way to look at risk. And only a third of company were addressing this in a holistic manner. So that's for setting the tone, if that's okay.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, well, I'm going to throw us right in with Michaelo, because we've all been watching our televisions, especially here in the hotel in Copenhagen, what happened yesterday. How do you manage risk in such an extreme condition as you have at the moment in Ukraine? How has it changed your approach, not only the dramatic situation that you are living through, but also the energy crisis? Can you tell us how that has changed your approach to the way you manage risk?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can at least hear me, and maybe even see me well.
We could, both. You can hear you fantastically and see you well. Don't worry, it's perfect connection.
So, greetings from Kiev. And indeed, Alex, managing risk now feels absolutely different. So for me, it started almost a year ago during the business plan 2022 preparation process, when I received a request from the top management to assess military invasion risks for the group. And this request showed a clear message for the risk management. We cannot do things as we did before. So one cannot just put the military invasion risk on a heat map or use a model to make a calculation of it. You must understand the general picture of the business, its correlation with the global drivers, see the vulnerabilities, and what is also important, see the opportunities. So what Remy has just mentioned, so risk management function must become 360 degrees wide. We're living in a very interconnected world, where ripple effect in one point is influencing the whole region or an industry. So the new risk management, I call it risk management 2.0 in my PhD work, is now emerging. So, and again, for me, it started a year ago, and it has been evolving through the preparation for the war during the first weeks of the invasion, when we were dealing with an extreme level of uncertainty, to the reality we're living now. And you mentioned the energy crisis, and we have the freshest example, unfortunately, of yesterday. So we had the Russians decided to shell the energy infrastructure of Ukraine by launching around 100 missiles at once. And today there is a ban from our local authorities for energy export from Ukraine to the EU that was established in July. And basically this event triggers not only these consequences in Ukraine, but throughout the region also, throughout the vulnerable energy sector of Europe. And no single model will show you this. And the new risk management should stand out from the second line of defense table and go to the business to see the real life that is going on. And I guess this is the main difference that we have today in this regard.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michaelo. You're staying with us just because you're virtual. If you do want to say anything or add anything, I'll keep looking at the screen, but don't hesitate just to speak, and we'll hear you loud and clear, and I'll let you join in with the discussion, but we can see you very, very clearly. Let's go to Christina. And there's obviously, we've been talking about it since yesterday, increased scrutiny of how different organizations address their ESG requirements. In terms of the governance of risk and risk strategy, I think you're a strong advocate of risk-based decision-making as a driver of sustainable growth and profitability. Give us your success formula. What is the magic success formula that you come up with?
Well, I think ESG shouldn't be a surprise to us. Today is ESG, tomorrow will be ABC. The day after tomorrow, X, Y, Z. And the day after that will be probably another TLA. So what's TLA? Another three-letter acronym. So no matter where the acronym is on the horizon, I think what makes a good risk management system is how deeply it is tied to goal realization. So I started my transition away from cost avoidance to a much wider approach almost 2 decades ago. And I remember that when I started as a risk manager, we were looking at the business through a keyhole. And we were trying to fix problems through that keyhole. So what we did is we opened the door and take risk management in the same room as the business. And what's in that room? In that room, it is budgeting, planning, marketing, investment decisions, capital, all forms of capital, financial, human capital, customers, etc. So I believe, and this may sound a little bit controversial, that risk management is not about managing risks. It's about managing how people make key decisions. My motto is better informed people make better risk-informed decisions.
So that's your key secret recipe. Thank you. Okay, we'll come back to you afterwards. Ulrich, I was actually a customer of yours because I used to live in Berlin, so I was a Vattenfall customer, so I'm particularly interested to hear how you think that the green transition or the transition to the low carbon economy requires new ways of thinking in general about risk management, because it's not easy for you, is it, to take on everything that's happening at the moment, especially in terms of energy costs and so forth, the kind of thing that we've been hearing about from Mikhailo. How do you cope with that for customers like me?
So first of all, I recommend to take your recipe. I fully agree to what you have said. But then there are, I would say, 3 things I would like to lift here to say where risk management needs to think differently compared to before. So one is, we are talking about transitional risk and the emergent risk. So direct your attention beyond the business plan horizon. Because what we are used to as a risk manager is that you have a concrete reference point. Could be a business plan, some financial outlook, and then you have a good risk definition, which is very often the negative deviation from this plan, business plan. And well, then you can quantify it, you can simulate it, aggregate it, so you may know your risk-bearing capability, and you can discuss risk appetite. That's all within this, let's say, 5-year horizon. But the topics we are discussing here now in 2 days, you won't capture, at least not fully. I mean, extreme weather events can happen tomorrow, yes, then we have them, but I mean, we're talking long-term developments. So, but there you miss this concrete reference point. There is nothing. It's kind of, it's more uncertainty than a risk. You have kind of foggy, it's very much beliefs. Unconscious or conscious biases you would run into even more than what we do all the time anyhow. And yeah, you need to be aware of the situation. But that doesn't mean that you should not care as a risk manager because the old tools are not working anymore. No, you certainly need to go there, though it's not the old way of controlling stuff. And how to do this, and that's my second recommendation for risk managers, is, I mean, team up with the experts you have in your company, depending on how big your company is. If you really follow the 3-line of defense model, you have there other functions who have an oversight, an independent oversight role. And talking about sustainability, I mean, we talk about environment, but sustainability is about human rights as well, data protection. You will find all the experts around you. And they have the same foggy outlook there, long term. So, and that's cooperation, that's close to your recipe, I think. Yeah. And then the third one is think more in risk committees. I mean, everyone may have a big risk committee close to CEO or including CEO or CFO, and then they discuss the corporate, depending on the size again, the corporate risk-bearing capabilities in general. But I mean, we have business out there. So, and they very often say, yeah, we take risk into consideration in our management team meetings. I'm not so sure, because they would like to grow, they have pink glasses on, and sometimes they do a SWOT analysis, but they mean risk, and that's a big difference. So I always try to involve business there to discuss, does it make sense to have a risk committee in place to prepare decision making then on? And then you can capture everyone you would like to, the other functions where they have a saying, of course, the risk owners, if it's connected, I mean, utility, you talked about it, to the public reputation, then there may someone from communications in it and so on. So these three topics I would add to your recipe.
Mm-hmm. So quick question on, on your point, Ulrich, is what would make the business invite risk management to sit beside them? And I mean, from a very practical perspective, I think it's basically because we put practical tools on their desk, on everybody's desk. And those tools are actually connecting real people with real problems. We are connecting operations managers with service, customer service, finance with legal, insurance with bidding departments or business development departments. Then it's just back to your point, risk management is about achieving goals through smart risk taking rather than cost avoidance, which is traditionally, the approach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And you don't have these concrete targets, but you may have strategic ambitions. And then you start from there, I would say.
Let's talk about resilience, because you're all talking about that. If I interpret what you've said, it's all a question of resilience, and resilience is very much the buzzword of a lot of what we talk about today. What does that mean in terms of risk functions? How do we incorporate resilience in terms of the tools that you've just been talking about? Who would like to take this one?
I can start, maybe by, I mean, we discover resilience now, but I think it has been there as an issue for a long time and maybe overlooked, I think. So I personally start working in a trading floor. So in a trading floor, you pretty learn quickly that the decision you take when you have a big movement or an issue at the beginning make a difference between an issue, significant loss, and sometimes a catastrophe. So you know that at this time, reacting is important, and this is about risk management, I believe. And you can see this in cyber today as well, I mean, typically. And obviously, we had the last couple of years of experience showed us that how resilience is important. And I think it has been overlooked, and you can think about putting together a real risk resilience management framework. So to take it further, to make it more precise, impactful. One important thing, I think, that is holding the whole thing, and it's pretty much links with what you said and with the fact of dealing with sustainability, geopolitical risk, is being able to precisely map, to identify the critical business services you have, the ones that are important for your organization, and that map everything that help it to perform. People, system, obviously, supplier, etc. And this is a precise exercise to do, which can take you, I mean, quite far in the making, and this is why you need to prioritize.
Isn't it a bit difficult to decide what is critical? Isn't that one of the problems? That how do you make the decisions of what is critical? Because things change with what we're talking about. Things are changing at the moment.
Well, but at the end, you know that you have a customer, you sell products, you have a supply chain, you have facilities. I mean, all this are things that are there that help you to do your business, and it's the linkage between the different items that is important in that respect. And making this specific linkage is important and necessary for resilience and risk.
Christina?
I would say that, from an organizational standpoint, I would say the priority lists starts with culture and risk. This is basically the way things are done around here. So as to, educate the organization to avoid taking decisions on their guts. And for doing that, you need an established way of how key decisions have to be taken. Priority number 2 might be probably ensuring the continuity of your operations. And priority number 3, it's fostering liquidity. I mean, a business may not be profitable for a longer period of time, but you can only get rid of cash once. Just in a nutshell, this is long story short. So culture, I mean people, processes, looking at key decisions as a business, and third, liquidity, cash.
Ulrich, you seem to be agreeing. Then I'll come to Mikhailo if he wants to add something. I'm watching the screen, Mikhailo. We'll come to you after Ulrich.
Again, I agree. Surprise, surprise. No, but the culture, I would elaborate a little bit more on. We call it then risk culture, of course. That's a fluffy term, but what we mean, and I could guess we mean the same. I mean, there are different elements. You need to have an inviting tone from the top, of course, to raise concerns. And I say concern because it may be not a risk in the risk register, but that makes you resilient, to have the awareness of what could happen. But also, you need to have a good governance, and I think you mentioned it as well, in place. I mean, sometimes you have a risk owner which would have the financial consequence, but the budget to tackle it, to mitigate it, is somewhere else. So here you need the culture of good cooperation. It's about people, it's about common understanding. Again, teaming up with other functions could be hierarchically, could be depending where you are. So fully agree to that. Sometimes I have the feeling that resilience is very often discussed, from the wrong end on. So then you have a concrete, whatever, security-related action plan in place. Yeah, fine, but first try to get the culture bottom up right, and then you have less problems at the end.
What do you mean by bottom up? Are you also talking in terms of what we as clients and people who vote for the politicians who make the decisions that affect the resilience? Is that important too? Because in Germany, energy is a huge debate. It has been for years.
I mean, you as a company, of course, need to be resilient towards all the developments we have outside there. And there are so many elements in it. And of course, talking about resilience, you could have a whole session about business continuity plans and all this. But my point from the ERM perspective, when I go to meetings or whatever, then I say, yeah, let's start somewhere else. That's always then my setting point.
Okay, let's go to Mikhailo. Do you have any points on what we've been talking about? I hope you can hear us well on the link, mainly in terms of resilience, some of the things that you've been hearing. Over to you.
Yeah, definitely. The resilience today from our side is the top goal of any company working in Ukraine, even prior to profit. Because who cares about your profit margin if your business ceases to exist tomorrow? So basically for us, resilience is an ability to maintain the balanced development and successfully face the external or internal challenges. And for us, this is the role of the new risk management to build up this business resilience. What has already been said by the colleagues, it's about entering the business room. It's working with business continuity management. It's challenging the business plans, review the cost structure, the insurance program, whether it's working or not. Because for Ukrainian companies, the effective insurance program is on the top now. Because we need to protect our business. We need to run the scenario analysis. And top management needs an alternative view on the planning process. And this is basically the time for the risk management to step in. In marketing domain, there is so-called wow effect when you bring a solution that stands out. And for risk management, this should be O effect. Basically, when you show to the board the actual problems that no one else sees when being focused on the performance only. And suddenly there is a silence in the board and say, oh, this is the good point. We need to focus on it. And the main one of the main added values of the risk management today is creating this O effect for the management. Because again, the next 10 years will be really, really turbulent. And we are not unfortunately, not in the last crisis today. And yeah, this is the one.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'll put the same kind of question, obviously different risks, but what have been some of the biggest challenges that you have faced. If you give us concrete examples, I think that will help us understand better in terms of integrating risk management, in terms of planning, budgeting, and so forth. Could you give us a few concrete examples and how those challenges have been met? Christina.
Well, reflecting back on my career, I would say that one of the biggest challenges has been getting the frontline voices to speak up. I think risk management has to be approached from the ground up. And my obsession has been always listening to those frontline voices, because I think we tend...
Who are we talking about? Who are your frontline voices?
Okay.
Who?
I'm referring to operations. I'm referring to people in the ranks, right? Because we tend to listen or to take into consideration the perspective of the risk management team or the leadership team, but we are not, but whose voices are missing? And normally, those voices of the operations guys down there, are the ones that are not taken into consideration. Why is this important? Because I think that risk management ultimately is about bringing together all those voices, all those perspectives, so as you can help the business to take risk-informed decisions. So no way you can actually take a good decision if you are not listening to a big portion of what your people think, or you need to know what are the monsters under the bed of our, operations people. So just to give you a concrete example, I'm currently serving as Chief Risk Officer at Sasir, which is a leading infrastructure multinational company dedicated to managing infrastructure projects, right? So our system is actually looking at what keeps our project teams awake at night. But in practical terms, we have developed a system which looks at the key decisions that those project teams need to take, including entering or not a new market, selecting a client, selecting partners, analyzing terms and conditions of a contract, closing the economical or the technical offer. So it's not just about creating nice heat map, risks, or coming up with, a nice risk catalog at all. It's just considering the day-to-day firefighting of those people taking the right decisions or the wrong decisions ultimately. So that's why I refer to my obsession to the frontline voices. Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear about Ulrich and Rami's monsters under the bed. What keeps you awake at night? Or what has, and what are the solutions you found to it?
Well, when it comes to investment planning and all this, if you would like to connect this to risk data, then the data needs to be fine. And this means you need to really thought through bottom-up, bottom-up again, reporting process as well. But then you should have all the financial intelligence in place to connect then your to aggregate and then connect the results really to the group financial data you have. And then you know about your risk-bearing capability. That's quite advanced. So there may be other ways on the way there. So that's one challenge. The other one, you need an understanding by the partners you need for this exercise, for the importance and the value of risk management. And that may be here I'm happy in Vattenfall, we are fine, but that's maybe due to the nature of our business. It's a little bit like the banking world, there's special focus. But in my role as FERMA board member there, I see many or some companies where depending on individuals on top management, if they change or not, suddenly the whole house of cards goes back to zero and then they have to rebuild again. So you need really a stable risk management system which survives also change of personnel.
Okay, and Rami, just an example, concrete examples of these problems.
Concrete example, I think you both mentioned the cultural aspect being with the business and getting the figure, and have an example where there was some kind of figure that were used in the budgeting processes with some scenario analysis, the way you mentioned. So it looks well done. Everything went through the process. You get I've seen the result, etc. But then I realized that actually the budgeting decision were taken before this analysis was done, because it was taking time, which brings me to that was a big company, by the way, but anyway, I think it's better now. But two aspects. One is, and I think you mentioned, is being relevant, providing the appropriate analysis data so that the business want it actually. And second, it's about culture. It has to come from the top of the top. If the CEO, the management, doesn't say to the people, well, I want this analysis before we take decision, then it's not going to happen as well.
Okay, I don't know if Michaela wants to add something on that particular point. Over to you.
Definitely. You don't ask me what keeps me awake, but yeah, besides the missiles, the things keeping me awake in regards of the corporate culture is the runners and the bookworms. I call it like this. And it relates to the corporate culture. So there may be the corporate culture of the runners when all the management, all the staff is super focused on the achieving like financial goals, EBITDA, price per share, profit, whatever. And they basically running for these figures. They did not see the, let's say, other side, the dark side of the moon. What can happen if this not does, if it's not working? What if another scenario realizes, basically? And this is one type of corporate culture that is a struggle for risk management. And the second one is the bookworms. People who are more the culture when the employees are more focused on the documents, on the processes, and on the commas in the document. So before any of the tool you implement, risk management, the tool, document, whatever, you need to pass a dozen of approvals and all this bureaucracy and stuff like that. And basically you're just running around the process, but not delivering the added value. And you were asking about the examples and how to cope with it. I have example how to cope with the runners. So you must, again, step outside of your second line of defense table. So you need to prove yourself not only being a good risk manager in your domain, but a good internal business consultant. We discussed it before with Rami, and a good risk management in the new level is going to be competing with the consultants like PwC. Is the people who knows the processes, they know the points of pain, they know the problems of the company, they are able to analyze the external factors, and they can bring this added value to the board. And again, strategic planning, business planning, marketing, sales, relations with the clients, whatever. And again, if we overcome this challenge, internal cultural challenge, we will succeed as risk managers.
Okay, thank you. Right, we have 4 more minutes, so that's 1 minute each. I'm going to ask you to conclude. Risk managers facing transition. That's why we're here at the moment. It's the key, the theme of our meeting together. What would be your one recommendation? What can you say to people, risk managers, how to cope with transition? If I asked you for one key message, you've got less than a minute each, and I'm going to start with Rami. One key message.
Well, I mean, I will agree with Michaelo if he want to remove my job, but having this consultant agile mode and thinking in the risk management to be prospective and to address what you want to do, I think it's important. It's both cultural and maybe skill that need to be set up, and this is why it's also linked to people, I think, at the end.
Okay, Christina.
I would say we need to bridge the knowledge gap around risk and why and how it brings value to the business. There, I believe, and I'm putting, my hat as a qualified risk director and a board member, there is a hunger in the boardroom for a different light. However, risk keeps being presented in a way as what could go wrong. We need to change the way we are approaching risk. Board members think on risk as a way of achieving goals, and this is their natural way of thinking. So I would recommend risk managers to learn to speak the language of the board first thing. And that means to define success and work on that backwards. And let me explain. Define success, understand what are the drivers of success, find what changes those drivers and how you can enhance those drivers. This is the way to bring all forms of capital in the discussion and to hopefully bring a strategic dialogue in the boardroom about risk.
Okay, perfect. And Ulrich, what would be your recommendation to everybody?
I steal an idea now. You create this O effect. I like this so much. And how to do this? We discussed a bit of it. I mean, think of your role as a jester. You know, in old medieval times, there was the person who could tell the truth but couldn't get punished. And the O effect you just get by good analysis.
That was the reply I wasn't expecting, to be the court jester, the medieval clown who actually tells the truth, the one who says the emperor doesn't have any clothes. Michaelo, we'll hand over to you for the final recommendation. In your situation, we can only imagine what you're going through, but what would be your recommendation about how risk managers can cope with transition?
Well, if you don't mind, it will be 3 in 1. The first point is be there where the challenges are, where the transition is. The second one is know your business. And the third one, do not be a type of a person who is still living in 2019, in the year 2019. The world has already changed. We cannot do things as we've done before. I guess this is the one.
Thank you. So how do you say thank you in Ukrainian? I'm not sure.
Дякую.
Дякую. Thank you very much. So, Дякую. Well, first of all, can we applaud especially Michaelo under the circumstances? From Copenhagen, you can hear us applauding. Thank you so much for being with us. You can hear the whole room applauding you, and also, of course, our people, our panelists here present today. Thank you. I'm going to take you down. You can go and enjoy the rest of the meeting. I'm going to ask you to take your seats because we're going to go on now to meet our special guest. Thank you very much. Thank you. Big round of applause.